Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's excited to walk through Amazon Bedrock today. So, Amazon Bedrock recently went generally available. We've all been anticipating this moment and we're all very excited to try it out. And I know that there've been some issues today getting the SDKs out. That'll probably be resolved by the end of the day. But because we have been working with Bedrock in preview for quite some time, we already have access. So I thought it would be cool to walk through and show some things. We will be walking through uh, the Bedrock console. We'll be walking through the Bedrock SDK that is going to be slightly different from the one that should come out later today. And we're going to be talking about the models and the pricing and all of the above. And this is a rapidly evolving space. There's lots of different things available, and we should all kind of be flexible, right? Like, this is what we see today isn't necessarily what we're going to have access to by the time reInvent rolls around, right? So, yeah, let's hop in. Okay, so this is the Amazon Bedrock page, and you've got the normal stuff. It's like, oh, how does it work? And Antia wrote this really great blog post that was on the AWS news blog, Bedrock, now generally available. So, uh, it talks through how to use everything, and then it talks through the SDKs. And then I've basically been mindlessly refreshing the Bodo 3 and Bodo Core GitHub pages today to see when the SDKs are coming out. But helpfully, there is a GitHub Bedrock workshop that has some of these SDKs already available. So if you see this download dependencies script that's in the Amazon Bedrock Workshop GitHub repo, the Bedrock SDK is here. But what I did is, this is a massive, couple hundred megabyte file. It's actually a lot easier to just download, CDN, just download the model files. So I'll show you how that works over here. So I'm just gonna minimize this. So I have created a link. It's https cdn.klint.com/bedrock new.zip. And this contains just the Bedrock model files. It doesn't contain anything else. So it's not the 200 megabyte SDK. I think this whole file is like 8K. So you can do something like this, where you curl this down into bedrock.zip, and then you make a new directory, squiggly line tilde.aws/models, and then you unzip this Bedrock SDK into AWS models. So the way that this works, I'll show you what's in that. In Bedrock, there's a folder that contains the API and these files. And these are just the service definitions. And this is how Bodo 3 works. It just sort of walks through all of the different APIs that can be called here. Now, maybe by the time you're watching this, the actual SDKs are out. If so, use those. It does sometimes happen when AWS releases new services that the documentation comes out a couple hours later. The other things, it's just lots of different teams working together. They're all trying to push things. So let's talk about Bedrock. I'm going to open up the console here, and I'm actually going to switch over to US West 2 just to demonstrate something. So over here in US West 2, you can see that I have some models that are available and some that are not. So what I'd recommend is, and I'll release a blog post later today that contains more information. What I recommend, the very first thing that you do when you open Bedrock, go to the console, and you can only do this in the console at the moment. Click on Model Access, click Edit, and then just go over here and select all the models. And then save the changes. Some of these are approved instantaneously. Some of them are not. They're billed through AWS Marketplace. So if you have certain restrictions on your account about working with AWS Marketplace, you may not actually be able to immediately get access to these. And I know someone on Twitter earlier pinged me and said, "Hey, I'm not able to pull this up." I don't know like how AWS Marketplace sort of permissioning works, but uh, you might want to check into your payment method and things like that. And then you have things like Anthropic. So we can request access here. So I'm just gonna, you know, put in the details. I'm not really that. And I'm just going to put in a description like retrieval augmented generation for internal employee search. And then this will probably be available later today. Now, I'm doing stuff in US West 2 just because in US East 1, I do have access to several preview models. And we can kick back over to there a little bit later. So yeah, you can see already got access to Cohere, already got access to Titan and Jurassic, and then this will probably happen in the next day or two. Okay, so let's go through and walk through the different models here. First we have the Jurassic models. So these are from AI21 Labs. These have been in our work that we've done on these things. They've been particularly performant when it comes to multi-language work. So they've outperformed many of the other models there. You can see the per token pricing and everything, and I think that's something we'll get into a little bit later. And then we have the Amazon Titan models. So right now the embedding model is available. The text model is in preview. And then we have Anthropic. We should get access to this. I have access to this in US East 1. So we'll click over there to show Anthropic a little bit later. And then we have Cohere. So I haven't actually worked with Cohere inside of Bedrock yet. It was also available in SageMaker Jumpstart. So I'm excited to try that out a little bit today. All of these models have slightly different things available in them. And so we created this little spreadsheet to make it a little bit easier to understand these. So one of the interesting things is that apparently, and I don't know if this is correct yet or not, but when I was looking through the console earlier, it looked like Anthropic has updated Claude Instant to have 100,000 tokens. That would be super super cool because if you look at the pricing, right, the the cost of Claude Instant is very low, and if you really can put in 100,000 tokens, that's 2.5 Great Gatsby's. I think that really sort of unlocks things. So I have this listed as the old context numbers for now, but if we can verify throughout this live stream that it really is 100K, I mean, that's going to be fun. That's going to be some new information. So, all right. So you can see the different pricing here. So you can see that the Jurassic models have about an 8K context. They have pretty fast token per second performance. They've got decent kind of capabilities. And one of the ways that I've been testing capabilities is using this page. So I've been going to benchmarks.llmmonitor.com, and they have a list of prompts here. So what I thought would be fun is let's just go to Cohere because that's a model I haven't worked with before. And we're going to go into the Bedrock console here, and we'll select Cohere, and we'll go to command, and we will walk through a couple of things. So yeah, here's the chat sort of interface for the Bedrock console, and let's try some of these models at the top. So this is the haiku test. So we'll ask Cohere to argue for and against. Let's switch around here. The token per second seems pretty good here, actually. How many seconds was that? It was about 3 seconds, right? Or maybe 4. And so let's just PB paste into WC-C. that's 68 words. Wait, did I not copy this correctly? Yeah, okay. That's a lot more than I thought. Okay, so it's 324 words, and that was 3 seconds. So 324 divided by 3, that's 108 tokens per second. I wonder if that's right. That's a very imprecise calculation, but we'll see. So that's one thing. I guess we could give it another sort of uh, another question here. So I'll start a new chat. Give 2 concise bullet point arguments against the Munchausen trilemma. Don't explain what it is. I think that's correct. Cool. And this is one that I think everything gets wrong. So this is a reasoning test. In basically every model that I've used, including GPT-4, gets this incorrect. So Sally, a girl, has 3 brothers. Each brother has 2 sisters. How many sisters does Sally have? So we can run this, and we should be able to see, yeah, 6 sisters. And that's the same result, by the way. We can go over here and look at the, okay. We can see like none of these gets it right. Wow. Okay. So Llama 7 billion doesn't get it right. I think GPT-4 also gets it incorrect. So this is a fun one because I think to humans this is relatively obvious, and then to the models it's just not obvious at all. So we could ask it to think step by step, and see if that improves the result. Nope. So Trav suggested on Twitch that we take it step by step prompt. And you can see we did that. It still gets it wrong. And then Christopher is asking if the chat playground is a good place to start. I would say absolutely yes. There's also this text playground, and there are a couple different parameters here. So if you go here, you'll see that you can configure things like temperature. This affects the randomness of the response, and a lower temperature means the response is going to be pretty standard, whereas a higher temperature means the chance of it taking a different path through the network is higher. And then P, top P, as it's sometimes referred to, it ensures that only a certain set of tokens, or the most likely tokens with a total probability of that value P, the float P, are returned and considered for generation. And then K ensures only the top number of those tokens is returned, regardless of probability. I think that's how that works. It's different across each model. So if we were to go, for example, to the Jurassic models and select those, you can see that it has a different description for top P and top K. Or it doesn't even have top K. What it does have, and this is another thing that I kind of like about the Jurassic models, is that it has this repetition selection. So you can penalize the response and fine tune it, not fine tune in the sense of fine tuning a model, by the way, by saying, oh, how many times does something that we put in the initial prompt show up in a later prompt? But while all of this is good fun, I think it's time to hop over to US East 1. So we're going to play around with the Claude model a bit here, and I'm just going to show you a couple of examples that we've found pretty compelling. And then I'll walk through some code and how we can build things on top of Bedrock. So the thing that I think people are missing about generative AI is that it is not solely for just making retrieval augmented generation work, right? Like it's pretty good at things like taking unstructured data and turning it into structured data. So We had a customer that parsed emails, and that customer wanted to understand how they could replace some of their regular expressions with a generative AI model, because maintaining regular expressions, if you've ever had to deal with that, it's like um, it's a little all over the place. So it's hundreds of lines of code that are um, very difficult to manage and very difficult to sort of keep track of and maintain over time. Whereas this is just one sort of line of code to Bedrock. And so what you'll see here, this is a Delta Airlines email that I got. And what I want to do is I want to parse out the departure airport, the date time, and the gate number. And then I give it a completely different email and I say, can you do the same thing? And you'll see that it correctly responds with the relevant JSON. So we could put virtually any document into this and tell it what version of structured output we want, and it could return. That to me is very powerful. So there's one other example. We had a customer that we were chatting with that they do building management, and so this is some arbitrary DDL that exists in DDL is data definition language, and it's a common set of ways in SQL of defining uh, tables and foreign keys and relationships and all this other stuff. And this is the DDL for this building management company. It's heavily redacted and super reduced down, because anyone who's ever worked with any real production database knows that no DDL is ever this clean. Most of them have like a million different fields named, unit ID underscore two, or building ID underscore use this one. All good fun stuff. So what we're going to do here is, you're an intelligent SQL query writing assistant. You will use the schema below to write a MySQL query based on the user's input. Respond only with the SQL command wrapped in this. And what I'm going to do is, if you read Anthropic's prompt engineering guidelines, it suggests that we don't that if we want something to happen, we should put it in the oh, someone has asked me to zoom in a little bit, so I'll do that. Sorry about that. We want to put the super important part of the components of the prompt near the end, basically. So we're going to say this after the schema. So we're going to put this respond only with the SQL command wrapped in SQL. And we're going to have it write a query for us. So what query are we interested in? Yeah, calculate the total revenue per building in 2023. Let's see what happens. So this is saying select the name, the sum as total revenue from buildings B, join units U. And you can see it did not actually respect my return only with SQL. So I wonder if I put this in the assistant side, I will respond only with the SQL command wrapped in SQL. And then we'll delete the rest of this. Boom, and there, it worked. So I could probably remove this in some case. So we have two questions on the live stream here. One is, does Bedrock provide model fine-tuning capabilities on domain-specific data similar to OpenAI's API? Yes, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So fine-tuning is possible, and I'll talk through how all of that works. And then Christopher Smiley asks, what are the lowest hanging fruit use cases for implementing Bedrock right now that you are seeing, maybe HR, finance, or sales? So I definitely think finance has a pretty interesting set of capabilities that can be unlocked with generative AI. So, if you think about this use case, right, I'm saying calculate the total revenue per building in 2023. When you're doing financial modeling or you're working on your P&L, you often have these random queries that, if you were a SQL Server admin, you'd have no problem going in and writing that query yourself. But a lot of the people doing the financial modeling, they have to use these business intelligence tools that have complicated GUIs and they fall in love with their Tableau or their visualizations and stuff. Imagine a world where you never have to make that chart ever again, right? You just ask the generative AI model, like, hey, go find, like we could do something, we can do a completely different query here. So, like, um, let's imagine we're doing something like, let me show me the total revenue for all buildings over 10 floors and in a format I could use in a histogram. So yeah, and so it'll respond with these queries. And I could create I could go over here, right? And I could create a quick little SQLite schema. Yeah. And we could test this. Um, so I'm going to change this prompt again a little bit. Well, we've played around with the Bedrock prompts enough. I think it's time to get into some code. So, like I said, this is how you can get the SDKs right now. I really strongly recommend using the regular released SDKs as soon as they're out. But for now, you can just sort of go to cdn.klant.com/bedrock_new.zip, and that's an easier way to get started than downloading that 200 megabyte package. But we have Bedrock, so we can say, Bedrock equals bodo3.client, and I'll make this bigger as people asked. Bedrock equals bodo3.client, Bedrock, and we can start to explore this. So we can say things like list foundation models, and you can see all the different models here. And then we can do invoke model. Now, the difference between the SDKs that are available in the workshops right now versus the workshops that are available the SDKs that are available hopefully later today is that the administrative side of things where you would do like model fine tuning and stuff like that, that is all in the Bedrock namespace. But there's also going to be this bodo3.client Bedrock runtime namespace where all of the invoke model stuff is going to live later on. So everything you see me doing right now is just going to be in this Bedrock namespace. But if you are watching this anytime after Thursday, September 28th, it's going to be this Bedrock runtime namespace for the invoke model stuff. Now, the models are interesting in that it's unclear sort of exactly what you need for each model. So this will what we can do is we can actually just say help, and this will give us the request syntax. So we can go in and we can say model ID equals Claude Anthropic Claude v2. And we can say the content type. I don't think we need content type even. And then we just say the body. And the body is going to be, a JSON dump, basically, of a certain set of things. So each model is going to have different arguments. And one of the ways that we can check on this is we can go over here and I can say, tell me a story, say run, and then I can say view API request, and it'll show me what this needs to look like in terms of the body. So I can take this and I can hop back over here and we can delete all of this. And yeah, we will grab this string. So this won't work. That's fine. I'm going to do import JSON, and I'm going to say JSON. Well, I'm going to say model, or let's call it Anthropic arguments equals JSON.load. That's in that string, and then model. What did I call that variable? Anyone remember? Anthropic arguments. Okay, Anthropic arguments. Now we can see what the body is supposed to look like. So let's just copy all this, and we'll say JSON.dumps. We can format this a little bit nicer. Spacing being off by 1 is definitely going to bother me. Okay, so we can now pass in pretty much any sort of prompt we want. Bedrock.invoke. This is another one that I did a while back. So this is using the AI21 models to translate text. So we can say hello world, and we can say the target language. And this doesn't need to be a particular string, right? This could be anything. So we could say the target language is German. I I know what's happening here. Give me one moment. I'm logged into the wrong account. And now if we run this, it should be able to tell us whatever we want. So I'll say hello world, and then we'll say we want German, and it'll say that. But here's the interesting thing that I really like about the generative AI models, because we could do the same thing with just Amazon Translate, right? Like we could just say translate equals Bedrock Boto3.client translate. What happens if I put in Klingon? I have no idea if that's right, but I could put in Shakespeare, like it can take arbitrary components. Whereas if you're using traditional APIs, you're basically having to put in, DE, CN. I could say English and, sorry, I could say German and French. Oh, that didn't work. Japanese. Interesting. I could say emojis. This is something that you wouldn't be able to do with other services. And now that we have the Anthropic Claude V2 stuff, we should be able to go in and actually start using this. So a LinkedIn user asked, does Bedrock provide model fine-tuning capabilities on domain-specific data? So yes, it does. Let me answer that question before we get into the more Anthropic examples. Okay, so the way that this works is in the Bedrock console, and I'm just going to switch back to US West 2 for this demo. You can go into fine-tuning, which is also in custom models. And on this screen, and this is also available via API, you can see instructions for how to fine-tune models. So like you can pick the Titan text one, you can enter the fine-tune model name, and then you basically provide a series of inputs and outputs. So the way that it works is the input data and output data should be in this format. It's a JSON lines format that you can provide up to a couple thousand examples, I think. And that's the fine tuning method. Now, when you host these models, you are having to pay for provision throughput. So if we go to the Bedrock pricing page again, um, yeah. So if we go to this page, you can see the provision throughput costs. And here's the pricing for Amazon Titan, which is currently the only model they have open for fine tuning. So right now, the format that works for Titan text is this format here, where you have the input and the output, and it's JSON lines. So you can put however many thousand examples you want in there, and it'll return correctly. Um, one of the and then you pay for provision throughput. So you go over here to the Bedrock pricing page, and you can find out what your provision throughput is, and it's basically an hourly cost to run those models. um, so Bedrock, if you think of it, is typically a serverless inference platform, so it's usage based pricing. But when you use the provision throughput, you're paying an hourly cost instead of the serverless inference cost. So if we look at the price per 1,000 tokens, Titan Text is very inexpensive, like fantastically inexpensive. The Titan embeddings are very inexpensive. So like if you can get stuff to work with Titan, like you're kind of off to the races in a good mood. But then if you look at the provision throughput pricing, you get a price per hour. So this is the same thing with the custom models. So you pay, this amount to store a custom model per month, and then the pricing that you use to uh, do inference is the same as the provision throughput pricing. So that can, if you're making sufficient and significant use of these models, you can actually realize significant savings through the model unit. Um, as far as what a model unit is, beyond the hourly cost, I am unclear on that. I've been trying to figure that out over the last couple, you know, minutes since this has come out, and it's not entirely clear what a model unit corresponds to so far. So, I mean, we can look at this example here, right? 2 model units. So they need to kind of translate the model units into tokens per second in throughput. Christopher Smiley is asking, none of the Bedrock tools like Titan are available on the free tiers. I don't know. So I don't know if there is a free tier. Doesn't look like it yet, but I would defer to Amazon to answer that one. So if you look at the billing, all of the billing happens through um, the marketplace. So like if you're talking to Cohere, if you're talking to one of the other models, it's all going through marketplace and not going through uh, like regular AWS billing. But yeah, so one of the things I'll show you that we built is we made a little demo on top of Bedrock that can basically do retrieval augmented generation. So we used Kindra, and we put this little architecture together where we can go and talk to Kendra, and we can do retrieval augmented generation powered by Claude. So we can say things like, if you remember earlier when I asked Claude who is Randall Hunt, it didn't come back with the correct response, right? So I can just do this again really fast. Who is Randall Hunt? /in/in. And then we'll do json.dump_s. And we'll do bedrock.invoke model. And we'll do response equals. and we'll say model ID equals Anthropic. Don't make fun of me for mixing up my quotes here. It's a live stream. And then we'll say body equals this. Oh, and it would help if I put a comma, right? And then we'll do response body read. And you can see, unfortunately, I do not have enough context to determine specifically Randall Hunt. Randall Hunt is a relatively common name. But now let's do retrieval augmented generation. So I'm going to ask it the same question, who is Randall Hunt? And it's going to go out to our Kindred index. It's going to fetch my bio from some blog post that I wrote. And it's going to say, Randall Hunt is the VP of Cloud Strategy and Innovation, and it'll cite its sources. So this is the power of retrieval augmented generation, and it's something that we are playing around with quite a bit, and something that our customers are kind of taking advantage of already. And here's another sort of example that you can use. You can say, how can Kalent help me with generative AI? And this will go to our blog post, and it'll read and synthesize and summarize a response for us. And I'm sorry that the demo is like all over the place right now. I've been playing around with streaming responses. And so as Kalent can help you unlock reach out to a Kalent engineer. We translate it into Spanish and everything. And you can see here's the blogs that it referenced. Cool. So yeah, I mean, that's sort of Bedrock in a nutshell. There's this cool Bedrock workshop GitHub repo. I think it's worth exploring. I think, if you're looking to go deeper than the basic stuff that I was just showing, you can go into LangChain. So LangChain is a Python framework that is particularly good at sort of creating agents, putting a couple of different retrieval augmented generation steps and some other steps together. Yeah, it's a powerful kind of component. There are other frameworks, there's Llama Index, there's Grip Tape. I expect in the fullness of time, all of these will have Bedrock added to them. And I mean, I think we should really start, like, if you've seen the preview announcements that are coming from AWS, we should really start thinking of Bedrock honestly as a family of services, the same way we think about SageMaker as a family of services. It's not, because we've already got knowledge base, we've got agents, and they're probably going to release more stuff down the line. So I think it's time to start considering Bedrock as a whole kind of suite of things. Okay, let's go back to the chat models here. Is there anybody on the live streams that wants to ask a question or try out anything? I've got access to the Titan model. I guess they just gave me that in US West too, so we could try the Titan model. This is an interesting one, actually. I tried this earlier. What is Amazon Bedrock? So you can ask the Titan model this, and it comes back with a completely coherent and correct response. It's missing an S actually on startup, but anyway, like that's correct. This is a correct inference. But then if you go to say Claude and you ask the same question, what is Amazon Bedrock? It hallucinates. It comes up with something that's not real. Like, it's an internal technology platform developed. I mean, none of this is real. So it's kind of interesting to see the differences in the models. And that's why I really like this page, this LLM benchmarks page that I was showing earlier. Give me one moment. I'll bring it back up. LLM benchmarks. So these are all the prompts that it has, and it just sort of says like, "Oh, help me write these things. Help me do these things." And this is a fun one, so we could run this really fast. For those of you watching on Twitter, LinkedIn, or Twitch, I can see the chat, so just let me know if anyone wants me to run through something or connect it to something. So I'll start a new chat here. Actually, is that what this function does? Yeah, I think that is what this does because it recursively calls it and then appends it. Yeah. So, huh. So let's ask Titan the same question. Um, oh, hey, that's a really good and accurate response. I think the formatting on this response is actually significantly worse than what we got from Anthropic, but like the fact that it's able to figure out what the code does and that it's recursive and everything, that to me is positive. Like that's pretty cool. Alex, Christopher, Trav, anybody want me to try any models, try any queries? If not, I'm gonna hop off and then we're gonna get to work on a blog post and we'll be sharing that later today where we're going to walk through how to get started with Bedrock and all the different components of it. And you should stay tuned. We're going to be releasing a lot of details and guidance over the next few weeks. But yeah, if no one else has any questions, we can hop off. I'll share this URL really fast. So this is where we're keeping our SDK for now. Thanks, Trav, for joining. Thanks, Christopher, for joining. So I've posted the URL in Twitch, and I'll also post it on Twitter later. But yeah, I mean, that's it for now. We look forward to a lot of other stuff coming out from Bedrock and excited to play around with this more. The custom models are going to be fun to tune. So I'm going to play around with that later today. But yeah, that's everything, folks. So thanks again, and if you like these live streams, I can do more of them. I'm trying to decide if I should do these from the Kalent handle or if I should do them from my own personal handle. I think the Kalent handle people are more interested inside kind of like high level business overviews, whereas my personal stuff, back when I used to do live streams all the way back in 2017, I think people care a little bit more about the code and everything. So I might end up splitting things that way. But yeah, thanks again, everybody, and I will see you all later.